Hello, and welcome back to the Just Follow Joy podcast. My name is Ariana Joy. I'm your host, and I'm a human design reader and teacher. And today I'm super stoked because we are talking to my friend, Manifestation Queen 1-3 projector, Tara Brunet, all about overcoming subconscious blocks and fears when it comes to manifesting what we say we want. Because the main fear that we're actually going to be talking about, which usually is one that's hidden under a few layers, so a few other cover-up fears, if you will, is actually this bigger concern that we are going to get what we want. We will manifest what we want, and the consequences that we think that can come with that, whether they're realistic or not. Because a lot of the time when we're talking in manifestation about fears, what's the first thing that comes up in your mind? It's the fear that I'm not going to get what I want, that this is not possible, that I'm going to be stuck here forever in this reality that I don't like, where I'm missing this thing that I want. But if you are someone like me who's definitely experienced this in my life, where it feels like you're in this loop where you're so close to the thing you want, where you're so close to breaking through, where you see these little steps of progress, but it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, or 4 or 5 steps back. And it feels like you keep saying, I know I want this, and it kind of feels like you're expanding, but there's this wall there, right? Or I've always felt that I was like caged in, like I had this energy that wanted to expand out or receive, but it was like caged in or blocked off. And then you kind of slide back into what you're used to. It's very, very possible that this is something you're dealing with. And I know that people don't like hearing this because it's like, F you, of course I want this thing. I'm doing everything I can to have this thing. And I'm not saying that you're not, and I'm not saying that you don't want it. Actually, I think you definitely do want it, which is why you're feeling this tension and resistance. So we just need to take a little peek, a little look at what the fear might be around actually getting that thing. Because Tara and I talk about this in depth in the episode, but when you can break through that, when you can blast through that, holy smokes, is that going to make some real progress show up in your life in ways that you've been looking for this entire time. So we talk about our experiences with this, how this has shown up in our lives, how you can identify the subconscious fears that are holding you back from manifesting what you want, and then also how to easily break through them. What I love about working with Tara is it's all about how can we do this in this easy, breezy, empowered way that doesn't take like years and years to do. So a lot of hope, a lot of juice in this podcast episode, and I'm really stoked to share it with you. Before we dive in, I just want to let you know that if you love the Just Follow Joy podcast, even if you just like it, it would be really helpful to me to get the show out in front of other people if you could like and subscribe on YouTube, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. I don't know if anyone actually does that, right? Like I don't even listen on Apple Podcasts. I mostly just listen on Spotify. But whatever works for you, if you could leave that positive feedback for the algorithm, it really, really helps. And I would really, really appreciate it. But that is it for me. So let's dive in and talk to Tara. Tara, I am so excited to talk to you again. I haven't had you on the podcast in forever.
I am so excited too. This is going to be great.
Tara is currently in Banff living her manifested luxury lifestyle.
I am indeed. It's very nice.
It's awesome. But of course, manifestation is what we're going to be talking about today since Tara is here. And I specifically wanted to pull Tara on to talk about something that I never really thought was an issue for me. I was like, I don't have to worry about this. But has become fairly obvious recently that it is something that I am dealing with and working on. And that is fears that actually hold us back from manifesting what we say we want. And I was saying before we hopped on to Tara that I think we would share a few of those in common, particularly in business. And some other ones have popped up for me lately. But I guess what I should start this with is like, how do we know that when we're not manifesting something, like when it's not showing up for us, we are subconsciously holding ourselves back with this fear, or even not even really through what we're doing, just through the resistance that we're creating energetically?
I would say it's actually so interesting, just like taking it back for a moment. It's like when I first started coaching Ariana, I did ask her like this specific question that I have, and you were like, no, nothing. And then like, I just coaching further, it's like, oh, actually, there's a few things. And it is like very sneaky. And this is something that I think is so important. And I think how you know there's some subconscious blocks is like, if you have been trying to create something for like quite a while, like manifestation does not need to take a lot of time. So if it's like been a significant amount of time, you're like trying and failing. And basically, if you're noticing like, I really want this thing, but then you're like not doing the actions that you know that you need to do, or weird things keep happening. Like, let's say your goal is to like run a marathon and then all of a sudden you break your leg and then you get sick and then you sign up for the marathon and the registration doesn't go through, or like it's like random things start happening. That's how I believe there's something subconscious going on, that you do not feel safe to have this thing.
You know what actually came up for me is someone I know, her husband was going to an interview for a job and he actually fell down the stairs before the interview and like hurt his back. And she was like, I think that you don't want this job secretly,
Yeah.
or I think there's like a block here or an upper limit kind of thing here, right? And I didn't even mention Gay Hendricks, who's been on this podcast, actually. I love his
What?
book.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, I was so. Here's where I had to break through some of my subconscious fears, inviting him on, and it was a great lesson. But if you guys don't know, you should definitely listen to that episode. But Gay Hendricks wrote this book called The Big Leap, and it's all about how, I mean, one of our biggest fears is actually how good something can get, and the fact that like we could get what we wanted. And there are like four core main fears, core fears, choose one of those words, Ariana, where that would hold us back from that. And, you know, I don't deserve this, or I'm going to be a burden, or I'm going to outshine someone, or there was one last one. But he was saying that when we're about to hit that, that's when this upper limit kind of comes in. And that's when this fear comes in and holds us back through these weird things, maybe. And actually, I really had to break through that when I was inviting him on the podcast, because I was like not doing it for a while. I was like, oh, I'll invite him at a different time. I'll invite him at a different time. And eventually I realized that there was this layer where I was like, oh, he's going to say no. And I was like, okay, well, what if he says no? I don't care.
Yeah.
And so I sent it and I was like, oh no, I'm so afraid he's going to say yes. And I'm
Yeah.
fuck up this interview and he's going to think I'm an idiot, or that I was going to be really seen. And actually that's one of my biggest fears that is hilarious to me, because I love attention, that I'm going to be, you know, really seen.
I have the exact same one. I love attention. I love being it's a weird one, but I think Ariana both have the same thing. We want to be seen. We love attention, but we want it to be good attention. So there's like fear when we're seeing that there's going to be like pushback, or like people won't like us. And like, that is something I've definitely been busting through lately for sure.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength with that. And it's funny because you do not strike me as, what's your moon in astrology? Do you know?
No.
No. Okay. You're like, fucking no. I literally have your chart up right now. I could see.
Yeah, I don't know my astrology. I just know that I'm an Aries. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's probably the Aries part then, because my moon is in Leo. And so I'm like, love me now, shower with me with attention now. It's all about performance. But it's funny. Yeah, you definitely don't strike me that way at all. I just see you more as like speaking the truth with that 3 line, in the candidness and just wanting like the recognition as a projector. But yeah, definitely that's because for me, I'm jumping all over the place here, but with growing my business and manifesting money and manifesting, you know, impact with my work, I've definitely been afraid of saying what I really want to say, or actually sharing that, even though I know it's going to make an impact, it's going to get me seen, because I'm afraid of where that will take me. I'm afraid of losing control over what I'm creating and losing control of the narrative too, which, you know, we already don't have that, which brings me back to this thing that, I mean, Tara would probably bring up too, which is that these subconscious fears, a lot of the time, they're so unfounded.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they always are. And it's always just like from past programming, or probably things that happened when we were like in the womb, or from 0 to 7, where we developed this like super strange belief, and we don't even realize that it's there. And I think like something really important that you can ask yourself, that I ask like a lot of my coaching clients, and they usually have big breakthroughs, is like, what bad thing happens if you achieve this or have this? And you'll just notice your mind start cropping up with like, what if people cancel me, or what if this, or what if that, or like, I have a really weird like thing. Like after I gave birth, I had prolapse, and I'm like super fit and athletic and love to work out, but then I couldn't work out, and I had a really sore back, and I had all these things going on, and I like was not doing the things I needed to do to heal my prolapse. And every time I try to do them, I would start to get progress and then I would stop. And I'm like, what the 2 years later, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Sorry. Like, why am I doing this? And I realized like there's also the other side of the coin, which is like, what benefit am I receiving from staying where I am? And I was receiving extra help. I was receiving sympathy from my husband. I had an excuse like around like, I can't carry Jaden, or I need your help. And like, I can't just like ask for help. Like that's like, no, I need a reason for someone to be like, oh, let me help you because you have prolapse. It's like, it's so ridiculous. And when I really just like unpacked all that, I'm like, why am I holding on to this diagnosis that is like ruining my life and stopping me from doing the things I love because I can't ask my husband for help? Like it's, when you start to shine a light on it, you can just clear it really quickly from that perspective.
And you know what actually came up for me? So obviously this fear of being seen, then on the other side, the benefit of that is being safe, right?
Yes.
And being like in my little shell. It's so funny. Last night I was in bed and I was like, I love hiding from the world. I was like, maybe that's not a good thing, but I love being cozy here on my little mountaintop, away from all the people and all the stuff going on down there. For me, with, business growth, if I'm being really honest, and I think that there are probably going to be some people who can really relate to this. I am a pretty accountable person. I try to be as responsible as I can be, but I really do have a fear of like caring for the responsibility of this thing I've created. And not only that, but I take very personally other people's growth, who I work with. And so for me, I think a big thing that I've been afraid of is, again, that control of this thing getting really big, right? And then me not really being able to support it, like feeling like Atlas with the entire sky on my shoulders or something. Like I'm going to have to be responsible for all of this. And I actually saw a frequency healer lately. Anyone who listens to the podcast, it's Karen Chong. She's amazing. But she was saying, wow, I'm feeling like you think once this thing gets really big, one, it's going to be like a lot of like slogging through this stuff. And then also you're really afraid of what if you fucking screw it up? I was like, yes.
Yeah.
But then she was like, what's so funny about people is that we don't realize when we manifest something we don't want, we can manifest the other thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's funny because fear of responsibility is in my chart actually. So it's like this high attunement to that, but then also this fear. But I did want to kind of ask how you can tell the difference between when you were just like blocking yourself through issues with your mindset and when it is actually a fear about getting the thing. Like how often do you think it's actually the fear of getting the thing versus just, you need to be refocusing your mindset more? Because honestly, the more I go through like the issues that I've had for a really long time and I'm trying to break through right now, the more I feel like it's so much more about the fear around the thing than it is about not understanding how to manifest.
I feel like it honestly doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, there's a block. And really all it takes, whether it's mindset or like something a little bit deeper, is bringing this awareness to just really getting I mean, basically like the steps of manifestation is like getting so clear on what you desire, making that decision, really aligning with it, showing up, being the person that you desire to be and having that awareness around it. So it's noticing like, how am I responding to these problems or situations? Am I responding as the person that I desire to be and where I'm headed and that sort of thing? Or am I not? And if I'm not, then how can I shift that? And it's like, you don't really need to figure out like, I think like people, I don't want to like create this fear for people like, oh my God, what if it's subconscious and I'm never going to figure it out? It's like, it doesn't matter if it's subconscious or conscious or anything. All that matters is that you bring awareness to like, am I showing up as a person that I desire to be and meeting the moment the way that I desire to, the way that I am like wanting to show up in this lifetime? Then great. I'm doing it. It's happening. Like there's not a question, but it's just noticing like, it's just bringing a lot more awareness and intentionality into your life where like, oh, I'm scrolling social media and getting super distracted and I'm not actually doing the things I desire to be. It doesn't matter if it's conscious or subconscious. It just matters like I'm not doing what I should be doing.
And I'm noticing it.
Yeah, exactly.
I loved what you
Yeah.
were saying about just showing up as the person you want to be, showing up to the moment. And I was thinking, like, if you're feeling in the vibration, which is what Tara's really taught me, it's like all about just, are you feeling in the vibration? Are you feeling the way that you want to? Are you feeling good? That's really what matters. And honestly, we've talked about Richard Dotts before, but that's
Mhm.
one of my favorite things about him. He said the same thing as you, which is like, you don't, like, a lot of people spend, and I know that this is going to trigger some people, but I'm really just saying things that I want to say now. You don't have to spend so much time in understanding the origin of this issue. You just need to let go of the issue. And like, I think there's some power in understanding it just so you can see that it's not here anymore.
Mhm.
But like going back and like, for example, like Tara, you had like a little bit of an explanation for that story of why you would lean into the prolapse, right? Rather than
Mhm.
healing it. Do you mind sharing that actually? Because I thought it was really, because you like realized it as you were talking about it when you were sharing it
Yeah.
the first time.
Yeah, well, and the key here is like you don't need to figure out the origin. Like the deeper you go, the more you're gonna find, the more you're gonna kind of throw yourself off. And it's like it's honestly all irrelevant. The only time it can be helpful is if it helps you release it. But it's like
Mm.
something that's so important that I find is like becoming aware, noticing what the story the mind is telling. It's like, am I willing to let this go? Great. Like, why am I not willing to let this go? Okay, let's go there. Like, if you're not willing to let it go, then maybe you need to go deeper. But I really think that like we get when I first started my business, I'm going on a little tangent, but I was so naive. I didn't know anything about blocks. I just instantly manifested $20,000 launches. I went to Bali. I literally was just like, let's go. Life is gonna be like, I was just like the queen of manifesting. And then I was like, oh, money blocks. Oh, this block. Oh, I have
Mm.
this subconscious thing that I need to change. And the more that I dove down into all these like problems, obviously the bigger they became and the harder it came to shift out of it. It's like, you do not need to figure it all out. You just need to get super clear on like, how am I meeting this moment and am I doing it the way that I desire to? But in terms of the prolapse, what was the question? Like what I realized about it?
Oh yeah, what, because you did have like a little bit of a story of like
Oh
when
yeah.
you were younger.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. So I did go deeper into that to be like, okay, what's going on here? And I was a competitive swimmer, and I wasn't that good. And I was like, I was average, and I wanted to like go to the Olympics. I had big dreams, but I like just wasn't really that talented. What happened was I broke my wrist, and I am like dedicated hard worker. Like I was like, I got a garbage bag on my wrist and I went to every single swim practice for 2 hours and I just kicked. And I got so much like recognition and validation and like celebration from like how hard I was working and oh, you just kept going even though you have a broken wrist or whatever. And that was the most attention I ever got when I was swimming. So
Mm.
I continued to manifest dislocating my shoulder and then doing a race right away with a fucking dislocated shoulder because I was like, it doesn't matter. Like I'm tough, I can do it. And that's how I like got this external validation. And I believe like there's a few times in my that is how I receive like recognition and validation is when I injure myself very badly. And then I continue to show up. I injured my back really badly, but I kept teaching spin, standing beside the bike, even though I could barely stand up. And it's like, people are like, wow, you're so dedicated. And it's like, I was an average athlete. So I didn't get recognition unless I was powering through like a injury. And then that's what I think I've continued to do, sadly.
One, that's so insightful that you've been able to pull all that stuff. But second, what a projector moment. Like finally recognition for all that I've been doing.
See me. Yeah.
And that's so channel 4037 too, because it's about like giving to the tribe and giving to the community through hard work. So it's
Mm,
like, do you see all the work I have done for you? Like, are you not amused? Do you see it? That
yeah.
makes so much sense. And it's funny because for me, I think that for a very long time, and I really did not realize this until I heard about this from you through you going through all of that, is I struggled a lot with feeling like people didn't like me for a very long time and also struggled with my body. And I kind of got into this pattern where I was like, in order to make you stay, I'm going to try to make you feel bad for me. And I'm going to lean on you a lot and ask you to like take care of me to show me that you will stay around. And also, just to, like if I have your pity, then maybe like you'll stay, which I didn't even really need to do. But I was like, if people just see that I'm struggling, then they'll come and take care of me and they won't leave me, which was hilarious because of course they did. They were like, what is going on? Why are you like so sad
Yeah.
all the time and expecting so much of our relationships? Um, but I didn't realize it, but it was like really keeping me in doing this stuff. And actually, this is like much more, I think this is much more coming back to the fact of like the fear of responsibility for taking account of myself. I'm like, if I
Right.
don't feel good, people will always be there to take care of me and support me and give me this emotional validation that I really just need to give myself. Like, I need to be strong enough to carry through because I've always wanted to be a person who was strong, who could stand up, who could do this stuff. But I've always had this sort of fear of taking accountability for that, because if I show up fully, my biggest fear is like no one's ever going to be there to catch me. I'm going to have to do all of this on my own, and I don't know if I can do that. And so I would kind of just keep creating these issues where my mom would have to come in, like pick up the pieces for me when I'd have a breakdown, or my sister, or any of my friends, you know. And I stopped doing it the soonest with my friends because, like, this is not conducive to maintaining relationships outside my family, and my family has to stay with me. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, so I would, you know, have these breakdowns where like I can't deal with this, I can't make it through. And I'm still kind of do that sometimes, you know, I'm moving out of that, but I can see it's like I was keeping myself here because then I guarantee that people will be around, and like they're going to be, they love me anyway. They're going to be around anyway, whether I'm strong or not. So I can kind of just, I'm realizing now I can kind of just let that go.
I mean, the irony of it all too is like if you think of yourself as like a magnet, and when you are in that space of like needing them to come and like kind of support you and fill you, you're operating at like 20% of your magnetism and you're wanting them to like fill it in, and it's never sustainable and it never works, I've seen. But when you can develop that within yourself, the irony is that then you're operating at 100% magnetism and you will be so surrounded and so supported and so celebrated that you'll be like, it's just like shocking because obviously law of attraction, like attracts like, it's like we're getting what we are, we're getting a reflection of who we are. And yeah, it's so ironic.
Yeah. And it's funny, that kind of makes me think of people who think I can't be happy with myself because then, or be happy alone because then I'll never attract a partner, right? So I have to like need a partner in order for them to show up. And that's actually not the case. It's like you become so much more magnetic when you are fully satisfied with yourself. And if you're not attracting people through that, then like they probably are not the kind of people that you want to be attracting anyway.
Yeah. And they're not going to stay. Yeah. They're going to be attracted to you at your lowest, like when you're needy and scarcity and like you're never giving yourself the chance to like step into your full power. And honestly, this lesson has just been coming up for me again and again in every single area. And like the places of my life that I've like completely transformed, like my body and relationships and even business, like it all happened the moment I decided I am so good. Like, right. For those of you who don't know, like before I met my husband, I was like, I am just like, I'm fucking amazing. I'm whole. I'm worthy. I'm complete. Like, I don't need anyone, not from like, I don't need a man, but just like, I'm so good. Like, I love myself. And like the next day I talked to him on the phone, 12 days later, he proposes to me. And 3 months later, we're married because and even my friend Lauren, like, sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but he went on a little bit of like, he had a fear spiral because we met so fast and everything happened so quickly of like, what if she doesn't love me? He had like eye issues, could go blind, whatever. And he really pulled back. And Lauren, my best friend, was like, are you sure he likes you? Like, are you sure about this? Cause like, and I was like, honestly, it doesn't matter because like, I'm whole. If it's not him, it's the next guy. Like it just was, and I still feel that way. That sounds weird to say, like with your husband and soulmate and father of your children, but it's like I am whole. Everything else is like bonus and whatever happens, like I'm a magnet for love and abundance and all those things. And like what an amazing way to live. And it was the same with body before my whole body transformed. It was like, I don't need my body to change. Like I am good. And then everything changes. And then you can easily maintain it for the rest of your life because you don't need it. And it will come so freaking fast when you no longer need it to like completely. It's yeah, that's like the biggest irony of our entire life is like we spend our whole life chasing things when everything is already within us. And the moment we discover that within us, everything just like floods in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I am definitely still working on that now. So anyone listening, if you're like, I'm not there, well, that's great. I'm right there with
That's
you.
normal. Yeah. I mean, you may
I'll
be
always be
there in
honest.
some areas, like you may feel like
Mhm.
that with friendships, or like I'm still working on that with money because money feels so like, but I need money. Like I have a child, like it feels more of a need. But the more that I let go and I'm like, whatever, there's ways money can flow to me, the more it comes in, which is really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I had a friend on my podcast once who said it's the places where you think you need to try the hardest that end up being the hardest. She was like, for me, I think that it's going to be hard to find a partner. However, I don't think it's going to be hard to make friends. I feel like wherever I go, I can make friends easily. So I fucking make friends easily, right? And that's
Yeah.
where she's already solid and not really looking for the thing. So it comes in. And I mean, yeah, there are definitely places for me, like, for example, with making friends, it's so funny because that used to be something that I was like, I'm never going to have like a group of friends who gets me, who wants me there all the time. And now I have friends all the time who invite me to stuff. They're like, where are you? I miss you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
me? And
I know.
yeah.
I wish you lived closer and we could hang out.
Oh my God, all the time. Yeah, well, if I visit Victoria, because it's
Yeah.
beautiful, then absolutely I'll come and visit you. The pictures you take there are insane.
It's pretty amazing there. Yeah.
Do you have any tips for people we've talked about identifying them, but for moving through them?
hmm Yeah. So there's a few different ways, and like there's so many different like practices and processes. And like I said, like number one thing is just getting really clear on like how am I meeting this moment? Am I meeting it as the person I desire to be, or am I shrinking? Am I hiding? And like what's going on there? And just really, really bringing that intentionality into your days and how you're moving throughout your days. And that is kind of number one. But one of this kind of goes back to the Olympic swimmer story is that this is just a really powerful practice that I found with tapping. And not to get, I'm not even going to go into the whole thing, but basically, what I found is to go back in like a visualization to the moment when we kind of created this belief. So, like when I was being applauded and validated for like whatever it was, and go back and change it because your subconscious mind does not know time. There's no linear time. They're just everything is now. So if you go back in time and change in your imagination, which your subconscious does not know the difference between reality and imagination, change the scenario, change what happened after that, you can literally rewrite and release like decades of shit that has been holding you back. So, for example, with the swimming one, like I just went back and I changed it. I didn't like, I don't even remember what I specifically did because it feels like I've kind of released it, but it's like I changed what happened. I changed, like, I had everyone like celebrating me and applauding me for being an amazing swimmer, not for injuring myself, kind of thing. And I just really shifted the story around it. And
Mm.
you can go back and do that with like a powerful visualization, and you can really like change the way you show up. You will feel like an instant transformation from doing that. And there's other methods like matrix re-imprinting, which is like a cool EFT tapping technique where you're tapping on the younger version of you. But I find that to be really powerful just as a tool to be like, oh, okay, where did this come from? Why did I develop this belief? Let's go back. Let's change that. Let's rewrite history, because you can literally do that. Like you can rewrite your whole life if you want to and
Yeah.
go from there. And you'll immediately change the way you are showing up in the current moment.
I love that. And also, what came up when you were saying that is this idea I've kind of been playing with, which is that, I mean, like, you can kind of change the past, at least in your mind, right? Because it's not here anymore. The only thing
Yeah.
that's here is the current moment, and that's all you can really show up with. And yes, there are these, we can carry emotional debris and kind of distortions in our energy pattern and field, but you can release that by staying more present and being in the moment. Like, technically, I know that, again, this is one of those things that's really controversial. Like, technically, it doesn't really matter what quote unquote happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but it's
Yeah,
not here now. And that's one of the biggest things for us, I think, is that, I mean, I know for me, my fears are based on what happened. It's not really what's happening right now, you
exactly.
know? And so I think that is so powerful. And I mean, let's say that like someone just has this fear pop up in the moment, like if maybe they can't tap or something, like, is there something that you say to yourself? Just like, do you have a mantra or an affirmation where you're like, okay, like I'm seeing the fear and I'm kind of just letting that go or moving through that?
Yeah. First, I want to say that like 99% of like our issues in the present moment are just like our past, our mind created stories that most of them aren't even real. Like the way we see the past is completely different from how someone else in our family might have seen the past. Like siblings, you could go back and be like, how do you remember that? Completely different experiences, even though you're experiencing the exact same thing. And it's all just a projection from the past into the future. And we continue to recreate it until we bring that awareness to it. And it's like when you can come back into the present moment, like that is where all your power is. And nothing from the past needs to continue to affect you. It's just because your mind keeps bringing it up and bringing it up and seeing the world through this filter. You can release it literally at any moment. And it does not have to take like years of hypnosis and subconscious programming. It's like literally a moment awareness of like, oh, I'm ready to let that go now. You may need to do it a few times because it'll come up, but it's like when you can live in your awareness, you literally have a superpower to be whoever you desire to be and create whatever you desire to create because you're not getting stuck in the mind's stories. But in terms of like a moment to moment practice, I just notice and I'm like, how would my highest self show up to this? And I also like if I'm feeling a lot of stress and anxiety, like I used to feel really anxious, like checking my credit card statements and stuff. I just ask, can I let go of 1% of this? And it's like, okay, because it's just a feeling in your, it's a sensation in your body, but we label it and we start building it up. And it's like, it's literally just a sensation in your body that can move through when it's not attached to all these stories and labels and judgments and perceptions and blah, 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 projecting into the future. It can just be, you can process emotions within like a minute if you actually aren't like, if you're just like, wow, there is a sensation moving through my body. I'm just going to notice that. But we do, we're like, I'm anxious. I don't have enough money. Oh my God, what if I can't pay my rent? What about this? What about that? And we like literally go down this huge story that isn't even anything real that's happening. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent again, but it's like stopping, like, oh, okay, there's my mind, like getting away from me. Okay, let's get present. Let's become aware. Can I notice the sensation? Can I release it just a little bit? And you'll find the moment you release it a little bit, it's like, oh, okay. And then it's like, can I release it a little bit more? It's like, yeah, it's actually quite easy to move through those emotions. And then can I show up? How would my highest self show up to this? She would be like, it's not a big deal. Let's just look at this. It's neutral. Like everything is neutral, but our mind projects so many stories and bullshit onto everything that can really throw us off. So it's just becoming aware of like, what is my mind going on about here? And it's not even real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah. And if I can actually say something to everyone, something that I've realized recently, and kind of what I've been using is for me, I think getting really clear on how you feel when you are noticing first, because like you'll start to notice when the fear is coming up because it'll feel for me like it's like suddenly a little contraction or like block or like, oh, that'd be fun. But like, what about no, you know, and it's like suddenly a pullback. And so getting really familiar with what that is for you, because for me, how it feels is like, ooh, I could like rise and expand here. And then it's almost like there's this like blackness that it's coming into. And I'm like, I think I'll just kind of settle in over here where it feels easier, right? But the thing is, when you look at that and you look at the two results, it's like, is that at the end going to be easier? Because you're just going to stay where you don't want to be, right? Like, yeah, it feels kind of comfortable. It feels like slipping into like old ratty pajamas, right? Like, yes, this is what I know and this is very comfortable, versus like putting on like a really nice pair of jeans and like going out into the world. That was a really weird metaphor, but like, you know, just taking that new step, putting on that lovely new outfit and stepping out into the world where you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how people are going to respond to that outfit. You don't know what the day holds, right? But that's the only way to move forward. That was just a little thing I wanted to share. I don't know if that's as much of like actually moving through the thing, but I think getting familiar with how that actually shows up for you, especially if you're like Tara and I, and you have defined spleen centers, which means that you have like consistent hits of instinct and fear, that can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, I want to second that because it's not realistic to notice your thoughts all the time. There, you have a lot of thoughts every day.
Oh,
And what you said is so important because it's really actually just connecting with your body and noticing when you're contracting. So ideally, if you can start your day and sink into a place of openness is what it feels like for me. It's like, I'm like letting go. I can feel like my heart opening, my body is relaxed, and I'm just like, okay. And then I notice when I'm like, oh, contraction, like I'm scared. What about this? What if this doesn't sell? What if my launch doesn't go well? It's like, okay, there's a contraction. And then it's literally, you don't need to deal with all those thoughts really. You just need to rise above them and be like, can I actually just open my body more? And like literally just from that practice, I like tripled my income in 1 month because I noticed where I was contracting. Like there was this one specific week where I had such an amazing, things were going so well that my body freaked out and was like, oh,
Mm.
what if it's going to stop? What if it's going to end? What if I can't hold it? What if this? What if that? And I'm like, that's so interesting. And I had this weird thing. I don't deserve this. It's too good. I don't deserve it. And it's like my
Mm.
body was like scared when I woke up to like a over $2,000 payment. Instead of celebration, which is what it should be, it was like, oh, this is way too scary. No more, no more.
Wait, I
And then
totally know that feeling.
yeah. And then you notice that your body pulls back and it's like, let's not post on Instagram today. Let's not put myself out there because it's just going a little too well. But if you don't have that awareness, you don't even realize like that. And that's kind of comes back to the whole thing. It's like, you don't need to discover all the blocks. You just need to notice, where am I closing off? And can I just simply remain a little bit more open, and things will start coming in. It's really powerful.
I love that, what you were saying about you can't be conscious and aware of all of these thoughts. You just can't. There are too many of them. And speaking of Richard Dotts again, he says that in his book. He's like, that's a losing battle. You're never going to be able to filter through all those things. So instead, it's really being conscious just about how the body is responding.
Yeah.
And
Your
really
body
tuning
knows.
into that. The body knows. Yeah. So you don't have to be so mentally aware and think like, oh my, because this is actually, and Tara has seen this in me in our coaching. Like I've been like, well, what if there is a subconscious block I'm not aware of? And then I just let go, and then I never get to where I want to be because the subconscious block is there. It's like, no, like technically if you let it rise up to the surface by tuning into your body, like you'll be aware. You just need to then kind of like work through it in the moment. And that's great. Like the body will help us with that, right? Like we just need to tune into it and understand how it's talking to us. And human design can help with that as well, because we can see the consistent ways that it shows us that. But yeah, that was great, because I think that has been a fear that I've had, and probably the fear that a lot of people who are like me kind of can overthink things can really have. Like, do I have to be so vigilant about this? But the truth is that really you do not.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that we got there, because you don't need to go back and figure out all, like I used to teach manifestation. Okay, now what are all your limiting beliefs? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's way too like convoluted and confusing, when really all you need to do is treat your day. Like I feel like the most powerful practice you can possibly do is wake up in the morning, spend 10 minutes just connecting with your desires, what you envision for your life and how that feels in your body, and kind of locking in that feeling, and then noticing, oh, where am I detracting from that? Where am I contracting? And just coming back. And that's, you don't need to figure it all out. That's all you need to do. That is enough. And you whatever needs to kind of come up, you'll notice and you'll release it. So it's just remaining. It's almost like you treat your life as like a walking meditation of like, oh, look, I'm contracted. You don't even need to know why you're contracted. You just need to open back up again.
Mm. Well put. In a nutshell, this episode. Well done, Tara Brunet Craig. Well, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. And I always love hearing this stuff from you. Like, honestly, you were one of the people who I can just understand manifestation from the most. So it's so awesome that I can share you with everybody else too.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anyway, well, Tara, you rock, and thank you. And everyone listening, you rock, and I will talk to you next time.